but I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
I'm James.
And we are happy to say that we've reached our goal for our GoFundMe.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We really appreciate the shares and the likes and the donations, of course. But, more than anything, appreciate that we've been able to carry over this little community in a way to new social media platforms. Because the existing ones keep turning into shitholes. So if you've joined us at Blue Sky, welcome and thank you. If this one gets too big, I'm sure it'll collapse as well. But as always, we move on.
We are abandoning ship at Twitter. That is definite at this point.
And for TikTok, we've never used that as, for the brand or whatever. But we both use it personally and it's been fun. But that is also in the past tense.
One of us more than the other.
Yes. So maybe I'll regain an attention span. Maybe I'll pick up a book.
As always, we will leave the GoFundMe open until the end of the Australian Open. And what that means is on our final episode for the Australian Open, our next episode, we'll give you an actual date where we will shut it down.
Okay.
While we have reached our goal, that doesn't mean that we're not still accepting donations.
You want to make that clear, right?
You're looking at me like, wow, what a greedy bitch.
Right.
Obviously, the more that we receive, the more that we're able to do in the year, tennis-wise, and for the show.
All right, let's move on. We are in the second week of the Australian Open, a little past the midway point, trying to squeeze in recording before the action starts this evening for us.
Where we are in the tournament is that all quarterfinal matchups in singles have been set on the men and women's side. How we got here is that there have been quite a few upsets, and we'll start with those.
I think overall the theme for me is, especially on the men's side, there was a lot of intrigue, a lot of excitement, but they weren't major upheavals, right? All of the favorites on both sides are pretty much still here.
Especially if you've been listening to the Body Serve, because I gave quite good advice as to what could happen on the last episode.
It was very upsetting to me.
It's probably the best showing I've ever had in 10 years.
So let's take it from Fonseca. You predicted the upset over Rublev. Learner Tien, I don't know what you predicted, but big things for him.
I said that he would be breaking out in 2025.
You told me I was wrong to worry that Shelton would lose to Nakashima. Of course, that's not true because Shelton is through to the quarters now.
Picked Clara Tauson to have a breakout again this year. She gave Arina Sabalenka all she could handle, on top of having an upset herself, beating Linda Noskova,
the number 29 seed and last year's quarterfinalist. Some of the big upsets on the women's side early on. Number 5, Zheng Qinwen, the runner-up last year, loses to Laura Siegemund in round 2.
In straight sets.
Yeah. Laura is a dangerous player. We all know that. She has some antics. The serve takes about 35 seconds to go through the entire motion before the ball leaves her racket. Zheng was just really out of sorts in that match. Andrea Petkovic gave this great little idiom. She said Zheng is playing like she has the handbrake on.
Which, I mean, that you're being very exclusionary to pedestrians here.
Oh, and to automatic transmission people?
Exactly. Well,
I don't drive stick, but a handbrake,
No, it still works for people who drive automatic.
Yeah, but with automatic cars, you don't really need to use it very much.
Okay.
Anyway, Zheng was not really there. It just felt like the energy wasn't there. She had 2 time violations, which is really funny, happening against Siegemund, who is an incredibly slow and, I dare say, manipulative server.
Jessie Pegula lost to Olga Danilovic. This was, surprising only because Jessie looked so good to start the year.
Yeah, and so good in the previous match against Mertens, who I thought was the real danger in her draw.
Pegula complained after the match that the court was slower than a clay court.
In one of the best early round matches on the women's side, Diana Schneider, the number 12 seed, lost to number 18, Vekic, which is a minor upset, just a few spots in the seeds.
Donna, of course, would go on to make the 4th round.
This is her 3rd straight second week in a slam, which is the first time she's done that. And I thought she looked great, fighting through that match against Schneider. But unfortunately, she was not 100% versus Pavs. We lost the second set in a bagel, I think, right?
Yep.
Diana Schneider, she is bound to get a big slam breakthrough. She made the 4th round at the US Open, but I know there has to be more coming, given her success in WTA tournaments.
And she's still only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Belinda Bencic really tried it at this tournament.
Oof.
She did her very best, reaching the 4th round, taking a set off Coco Gauff, almost made the quarterfinals. Along the way, she upset Yelena Ostapenko.
Ostapenko was number 16 seed here. She had a great start to the year last year, and she lost to Azarenka here last year. But Bencic, as you know, is using her protected ranking, is coming back from having a baby, and played in the lower levels for a little while in the fall, and now has clearly shown that her game is standing up to the top players.
Ostapenko is also playing doubles with the legend, the icon, Xie Sue.
Yeah, they're the number 3 seeds. They're now in the quarterfinals to face Kostya Karuza. Ben Rothenberg did an interview with Ostapenko and Xie that was very entertaining in his newsletter. Xie said about Ostapenko, "The tennis girls are always very nice, very good. I just need to be on their side next to them. Choose the right side." Because Ben was like, "Are they always very nice on court?" She's like, "Well..." She said Yelena makes her feel powerful. She loves being on the same side of the net as her.
Karolina Muchova lost to Naomi Osaka.
Yep, Osaka beat Garcia, beats number 20, Karolina Muchova, in 3 sets. The first set, Osaka did not look good at all, but then flipped a switch, and really, you saw some of her best ball striking in years. I feel like since she's been back.
In the 3rd set, some of those backhands, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Bronzetti, she takes out Azarenka, the number 21 seed, and as we mentioned before, Clara Towson takes out the number 29 seed, Linda Noskova, who was a quarterfinalist last year.
Speaking of the 2024 quarterfinalists, 2 of them withdrew before the tournament started. That was Kalinskaya and Krejcikova. 4 have lost, and the only 2 remaining are Sabalenka and Gauff.
The top 3 seeds on the women's side are still in the tournament. Sabalenka, Swiatek, Gauff. It's been a good week. And we'll talk more a little bit later on about how the tournament looks for the final 8 women going forward. On the men's side, the upsets, they were really headlined by Joao Fonseca.
About that. So we have a close friend who is Brazilian, and you made sure, walk me through this A, this nasal A sound, so I say it right. And you worked on it. You really worked on it, and that sounded good to me.
Well, we'll see what the folks think. I also listened to how Fonseca pronounced it on the ATP website.
Good. Always a good choice.
Straight-setted Andrei Rublev in the 1st round. And that win just created such attention on this young man.
Oh my God. The hype train was running.
However, in the very next round, he loses to Karate Kid Ralph Macchio,
who now finds himself in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open.
And
Lorenzo Sonego.
By that I mean Lorenzo Sonego,
right.
Yes.
Also, singing sensation, Lorenzo Sonego.
Did y'all know that we have another millionaire Nepo baby?
Yeah.
Fonseca's dad, Cristiano, is a huge figure in Brazil's finance industry, and he's also the co-founder of IP Capital Partners.
Big deal. I don't know if we can call him a billionaire heir. I don't think they're billionaires, but quite comfortable.
Learner Tien took out Daniil Medvedev in a 5th set tiebreak in the 2nd round, lasting nearly 5 hours. Next round, he beat Corentin Moutet, or as he pronounces on the ATP website, Corentin Moutet.
Mm-hmm. Just to make it easier for us.
In straight sets, after a 12-10 first set tiebreak, he ran out of steam in the 4th round, made it all the way to the 4th round before losing to Sonego. Tien was carrying a hamstring injury that I think a lot of folks expected to debilitate him. sooner than it did. It simply just ran out of gas in this match.
Right. He's played very little at the main tour level, and he's just won 6 matches in a row, including those 3 qualifying wins.
Jakub Menšík beat Kasper Ruud, the number 6 seed in the second round. Grigor Dimitrov, not too much of a surprise. He had to retire against Passaro. Number 11, Tsitsipas. Another one.
Oh, that's
the
another
one.
The other one you called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went out to Mickelson in the first round. Fabian Marozsan beat Francis Tiafoe in 5 sets. And Gael Monfils, the evergreen Gael Monfils, took out number 4 Taylor Fritz right before, on the same court, his wife Elina Svitolina took out the number 4 seed on the women's side, Jasmine Paolini. Same day, same court, back to back. Gem's life lives.
You posted a few days ago, remember when they deleted all their socials and announced they were breaking up? And then shortly after, they announced they were engaged. And they've been going strong ever since that happened. That seems to be an essential step of famous couples.
Let's give a hat tip to Eva Lys here. She's the first women's lucky loser since 1988 to reach the 4th round. She only got called into the tournament once Kalinskaya withdrew, and she went on to beat gospel great Kim Burrell, Gracheva, and Jacqueline Christian.
She unfortunately was drawn to face Iga Swiatek on Rod Laver Arena. She won 1 game, and Iga has been absolutely stomping her way through this draw.
Still, she lasted an hour.
Yeah.
Winning 1 game, but still playing an hour, that's a good workout.
Emma Raducanu also managed 1 game against Iga, 6-love, 6-1, in a match that, it is an incredible scoreline. It was slightly more competitive than the scoreline suggests, but Iga was obviously always in control of that match.
How have some of our faves been performing at this tournament?
Yeah, so let's start with Gael Monfils. The legend, the icon, starts his tournament by beating the number 30 seed Giovanni Pecci-Pericard. He's fresh off winning Auckland, so he's in good form. In that opening match, he hit only 1 ace fewer than Pericard, 18 aces to 19, and won a much higher percentage on his own first serves, which is really notable against a server like that.
He was up 2-0 on Pericard, and it was a frustrating watch for me, frankly, because he had him beat so many times. It felt like watching that match. And somehow, I don't know if you want to say Pericard stretched it to 5 sets or guiled, it should not have
beguiled him.
Right. It should not have been a 5-set match. And I just thought, in that moment, having won Auckland, spent all that time on court, to then needlessly play 5 sets in the first round, a deep run didn't seem probable. That was a frustration for me, because the way he played in the first 2 sets, it gave hope that something could happen here for him at this tournament. And like we've seen with Kei Nishikori in the past, so many of the men's players, they find themselves in these long, drawn-out tussles in the heat, and then they're depleted moving forward. That ended up not being the case for the next 2 rounds, but eventually in the 4th round.
Right. He beat Altmaier in the 2nd, then number 4, Taylor Fritz, in the 3rd, and Taylor kind of looked like he didn't know what hit him. He kind of ran out of tactics at the end.
Taylor Fritz said afterward that he is okay with his performance. He doesn't think he played badly, that Gael just played incredible tennis. There's not much more he could do. And that is false. I'm sorry, but that is absolutely false.
Yeah.
Because you have one of the biggest deficits in your game of any top player, man or woman, and that is your movement toward the net, and then when you get there, what you can do at net. Completely a fish out of water at net. It's crazy. Like, if Taylor Fritz were to ever figure that out, then you could realistically see him being a big threat long term to the top guys on the ATP. But until that happens, Gael was just waiting for him to come to net so he could have a target. And when you're that bad at net, you don't even have to pass them. You don't. And we saw that time and time again in that match. So that was a certain level of delusion that maybe he needs to assess.
Okay. Gael ended up losing in the 4th round to Ben Shelton, having to retire in the 4th set. Ahead of that match, he was asked, is your dream to win the Australian Open? And Gael said, no, Like, that's not my dream. I'm happy with my achievements, but my dream is to have a big family and just have a peaceful life. And I mean, okay, at this stage of his career, I do understand that answer. It's funny because his wife, I think, would not say that. His wife wants to win.
Well, she's a different person.
Totally. Like, Jem's life are at different stages of their lives and careers. Alina is quite younger than her husband. And she's just here to beat every Russian who comes in her path.
9-0 since the invasion in Ukraine. Hat tip to TikTok Tennis, who posted that on Blue Sky, I saw.
Her most recent win was over Veronika Kudermetova. Svitolina now finds herself in the quarterfinals of a slam again,
where she'll play Madison Keys, another of the TBS faves doing well at this tournament.
Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who I did not pick as a breakout candidate for the first time in, I don't know, maybe 5 years.
And you definitely heard about it this week. So many people, after every win, were in your mentions saying, wow, you turn goat? What is it?
Turncoat.
Turncoat. Scapegoat. That's what I was mixing up there. You turncoat, you treasonous bastard. Look what you did.
All I have to say is you're welcome. This was all part of the plan. Don't worry.
I have to say, too, that I had no idea that Alejandro was wagoning in the way that he currently wagons.
I think there was a considerable increase to the wagon. He starts the tournament by beating Jerry Shang in a retirement in round 1. Next, we go to Felix Auger-Aliassime, who had a very promising start to his season. Loses to Alejandro in 5 sets.
From being 2 sets to love up.
Yeah.
This was an upset. You didn't mention that.
Oh, yeah, it was an upset.
Yeah.
Felix, he has had some heartbreaking 5-set losses in Australia before. A quarterfinal loss to Medvedev in 2022. Round of 16 loss to Karatsev in that year that he broke out, 2021. Then Davidovich goes on to beat NextGenner Jakub Menšík in 5 sets. Now, this match had everything.
Again, coming back from 2 sets to love down. Back-to-back matches where he comes back from 2 sets down to win in 5 sets. Menšík had match points in this match.
Oof.
And it's not the first time he's lost in this fashion. These
Right.
can be scarring results for a young player.
Yeah, and he is very young. He has a lot of time to think about this and improve. They were both wearing the same thing, and now that Alejandro has shorter hair, it was very difficult to tell them apart for a lot of the match.
Well, the tell here was the socks. Because for years now, Alejandro wears one sock that's white and one that's black. It's one of those nifty, cute little details that he's stuck to that I really appreciate.
And the other thing, they were both wearing white hats, but Menšík's was backwards. So you could always tell who it was.
And I believe the shoes were different too.
Yeah, I didn't really look at the shoes. Menšík races to 6-3, 6-4, a little more than an hour. It is not looking good. He's been in good form. ADF gets to a set point in the third set at 5-3, but then faces a match point later, needs a tiebreak to win it. And in the tiebreak, Menšík has another match point, which hits a net cord and could have been it at 6-5, and ADF manages to get to it.
Eventually, he goes on to the 4th round to lose to Tommy Paul. 6-1, 6-1, and you guessed it, 6-1.
In less than 90 minutes.
I mean, that's generous to say it like that. It was 80 minutes.
Sure.
For a 3-set match, for it to be 80 is wild.
In men's tennis, that is pretty much as efficient as it gets.
Still, a great week for Alejandro. We mentioned previously that Osaka beat Muhova. At one point, this would have been an unfettered TBS fest, this match.
Right.
That we have said that we have reservations about Naomi now. But I still find myself enjoying her tennis. I can't help it.
Mm-hmm. It is hard not to like it. She is still on the back burner for me. However, the on-court interview after she beat Muhova made me feel a certain way, because the interviewer asked this very tone-deaf question about, oh, Belinda just had a baby just like you. Has she come to you for advice about motherhood? And Naomi she took a beat. I think she was fairly thrown off by the question. And she said, I don't think Belinda wants my advice. And then moved on and answered it very professionally. But listen, interviewers, they've got to know the beefs. Because there has been a beef for years between the two of them.
And she did call this a revenge win. She said, I was pretty mad about the US Open loss because that was the best kit I ever had and I lost.
But Belinda moves to 4-1 against Naomi. Naomi, unfortunately, that injury from, where was it? Auckland? Mm-hmm. That ab injury caught up to her again.
She was ahead in that first set, looked to be racing away to a 1-set lead before the injury started to take hold again. Belinda clawed her way back to winning the first set, and then Naomi called it quits. Ben Rothenberg pointed something out on Blue Sky today or last night, that one of the offshoots of this whole coaching pod thing that's on court now, where players can literally walk up to the coaches and talk to them, is that we're seeing players able to have full, distinct conversations about whether they should retire during a match, which is different from before. Previously, you'd see players gesticulating all over the place, being all frustrated and not knowing what to do and ending up having to make a decision by themselves or interpret hand signals. Now, It's different.
Goff versus Bencic in the round of 16, I would say it was kind of fun. It was kind of enjoyable, but also very stressful, at least in the first set.
Oh, the last 2 sets were the highlight of my week.
As you know, I'm an eternal optimist with my faves. So Coco lost the first set, and for me, it's like with Serena. It's like, okay, just get to work. You only have to win 2 sets.
I thought you were going to say I'm an eternal hater of Belinda Bencic.
Well, that as well, yeah.
The best part was when Coco lobbed her, and she ran to the middle of the baseline to try and retrieve that ball, and decided to do a tweener.
Well, attempt.
Well, all I know is that I appreciated every angle, every slow-mo, every which way the coverage showed me a replay of that debacle.
I mean, they showed it many, many times. The folks in this house were cackling at the sight. I am still a little bit superstitious because Coco hadn't won yet. So I'm like, I can't enjoy this too much because that's going to bring bad karma or something. It didn't stop you.
I did not suffer from that affliction.
The Runa Sinner match from last night was interesting. Holger, I mean, he has really kind of turned his trajectory around, I felt.
Okay, it was 3 wins.
No,
let's not get carried away.
Okay, that's good for him right now.
Okay.
And he had a chance against an ailing Sinner, but blew many chances.
He played to his seeding.
His decision-making is truly baffling, though, within matches. Yannick went off-court for an MTO, and he was gone for, I guess they say, 11 minutes.
But even before then, he was seen visibly trembling on changeovers.
That was very alarming. His right hand was trembling, not even picking anything up. And then he picked up his water bottle, and it was like shaking. Like, what is going on? So I think there was a period where, well, the commentators were like, oh, Yannick is probably going to retire soon. Da-da-da-da. No, Holger is going to make sure he blows every opportunity here.
It's what he gets for deciding to mess with the inseam of his shorts. He spent all this time campaigning to become the short shorts king, and now he's just handed it over to Thomas Machac and Tommy Paul. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he was wearing in this match.
Tommies are very tight and very short.
Yeah.
Holger was annoyed by Yannick's MTO, apparently. So in the third set, right before Yannick was to serve for the set, Holger took an MTO, which was pure clownery. I mean, I don't mind it. It was kind of entertaining, but it just seemed like he was pissed off.
So now we've got our final 8 on the men's side and the women's side. As it stands, we've got Sabalenka against Pavlyuchenkova, another quarterfinal in Australia for Pavs. This is her bag, you know. We've got Coco Gauff against Badosa set to kick off in about 90 minutes. Madison Keys against Elena Svitolina. Svitolina playing her first tournament since coming back from foot surgery that's kept her off the tour for a few months. What does it say there? Ankle surgery, where she had 2 screws put into her ankle?
Yeah, I missed this completely. Apparently it was in September.
Right, but then she's back in her first tournament playing the Australian Open and is one match from the semifinals. Right. Very plausibly a semifinalist at a slam. This is what she does. This is who she is. She's one of, I can't even think of other people, but she is a player who has managed to beat the pusher allegations.
Oh, yeah. And Madison Keys has had such great Januaries over the past few years. Has been a semi-finalist in Australia twice, I believe. Has won a few Adelaide titles. Knocked out Elena Rybakina yesterday. Looks great.
She's playing with a new racket. She's playing with more margin. This is the 4th time she's made at least the quarterfinals in Australia. More than any other slam. Her 11th overall.
You know, I'm a delusional Madison Keys fan. I'm always here for it. I know that she can often lose when she should win, but I'm always supporting her.
She beat Rybakina in the last round. No small feat. Granted, Rybakina was injured. There's no two ways about it. But there were times in that match when Madison of yesteryear, or a few months ago, or last week, would have went away.
And there were times that Madison appeared. Very much like a Kim Clijsters match, right? Where she sort of lost the plot. But she wrested control of that third set eventually, in a really impressive way, I think.
The final quarterfinal will see Iga Swiatek against Emma Navarro. And I just want to know, I would like some guidance, a heads up, as to when this Emma Navarro era will end. Because I'm not here for it.
Well, she's pretty young. She is on a true path of destruction of my faves. Of our faves, this tournament.
I think this is one of the things I got wrong on the preview episode. I believe I said that I don't see it happening for her in 2025, backing up her strong year last year.
Right.
And unfortunately, Dasha Kasatkina could not stop her in the 4th round. They were so evenly matched. There was literally nothing between them. If you were to try and find a match where two opponents were playing pretty much the same style of ball, hitting the same shots, with nothing between them, it was that match. And Dasha couldn't do that for me last night.
Yeah. And before that, it was Ons Jabeur, who, like, we saw flashes of her brilliance for so much of this tournament, absolutely killing Navarro on drop shots for a large part of that match. Unfortunately, she couldn't get it done, but I think it's overall good signs from her.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are unaware as to where this vitriol comes from, this dislike, this distaste, let us remind that it has to do with the sins of the father. And because of the sins of the father and how egregious they are, the heiress catches strays. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. You know, people will say you have to level the same at Jessie.
Sure.
But she's not here. She's on a plane back to the USA.
Jessie has never been a fave of mine.
Right.
But to be fair...
Not as much of a nemesis,
to be candid, I've never taken as firm a stance with her.
Right.
So yes, that is hypocritical of me. Thank you for pointing that out. I do suspect, though, that Iga will handle her quite easily in the next round. The bakery will be open.
Iga is in fearsome form.
She seems to be looser at this tournament.
Yep. On the men's side, quarterfinals, we've got number 1 Sinner versus Australian de Minaur. Ben Shelton, who I expected to lose early, is through to the quarterfinals versus Sonego. Number 7 Djokovic, of course, plays Carlos Alcaraz. Oh, we'll talk about Carlos later in the kits segment. We did watch his match against Jack Draper, which unfortunately ended in a retirement. The weather has really been wreaking havoc on the players lately. They've really been suffering over the last few days. Djokovic Alcaraz is obviously a quarterfinal nobody wants to see. It shouldn't be happening this early in the draw. And then finally, Tommy Paul versus that guy.
Do you have any predictions as to what we'll see from these quarterfinal matches?
Well, I have been consistently wrong.
Okay, so pick the ones you don't want to win.
I'll pick Djokovic to win.
Yeah. Do it. Do some more.
Right. I'll pick Alex de Minaur to win. Sony. Check out his song Un Solo Secondo on YouTube. It's actually pretty good.
And you're just not even going to talk. You couldn't possibly, even in jest, say you want that guy to win. So we'll just ignore that.
No, I would never say that. Yeah.
On the women's side, I would like to see, I'm not going to say who I think will win, I'm going to say who I want to win.
Okay.
I want to see Pavs, I want to see Goff, Keys, and Iga.
All right.
You're not...
I would like to see it. Yeah, obviously, I would love to see Pavs in another semifinal. But against the number 1 seed and 2-time defending champion, I don't know.
She hasn't looked impregnable at this tournament.
No, she hasn't.
I'm going to throw you a bone here. How about you tell us about something you were right about?
Oh, I have a good one. I'm so glad. I feel like this might be a little scripted, but you did set me up.
You're welcome.
Did I not tell you in the last episode that once Nick Kyrgios came for a famous nepo baby, it was all over, right? Any sort of sympathy for him was going. It didn't result from him pleading guilty to domestic violence. It didn't happen because he was aligned with Andrew Tate and behaves like Elon Musk and all those things, harasses people online, disrespects women and women's tennis. None of that did it until he came for Cruz Hewitt.
Andy Roddick took great exception to this on his podcast Served, saying, quote, "Imagine as an almost 30-year-old man going into the comments of a 16-year-old who is the best player in the world." Best player in the world.
I just copy and pasted. I don't know what that is.
"If you think he's guilty or not guilty, it's still a moment when you get to do that. That's a big moment, and to simply post a picture and then, oh, got it. Talking about Sinner."
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes. Because Kyrgios went into Cruz Hewitt's comments talking about the picture of Cruz with Yannick Sinner. So let's try that again. Imagine as an almost 30-year-old man going into the comments of a 16-year-old who is the best player in the world. If you think he's guilty or not guilty, it's still a moment when you get to do that. That's a big moment. And to simply post a picture and then have this guy go into the comments and make it all about himself, saying, "I thought we were bros."
And then he went on to say, when you have moments in your life that aren't the best, when you've pleaded guilty to physically assaulting your girlfriend, but you want people to understand the context. You wanted people to understand your moment in time and life that didn't make this acceptable, but at least maybe say, this isn't who I am, this isn't what I do, I'm not an abuser even though I pled guilty to abuse. It's just hypocritical.
It's purely hypocritical.
And of course, he's right. It's just Nick and Andy have been going back and forth, and Nick made cracks about Andy being a doper and, stuff that's truly beyond the pale, like totally without evidence. And so they've had this kind of beef going. It's just, I don't know, it's like interesting the things that push people over the edge.
Then to add insult to injury, to Nick's injury, he loses in straight sets to Jakob Fern. I did it again.
The man is from the United Kingdom.
To Jacob Fernley. And then Nick and Thanasi lose in doubles in retirement to Vukic and Duckworth. Thanasi said that he was advised not to play at all. So what I had feared to be the Australian summer of Nick, it just went out with a whimper.
Mm-hmm. And all this hype from all of the tennis accounts, from Australian media. Nick is coming back. He's committed. And I mean, what we predicted happened.
And now he's saying in his post-match press conference that he may not play singles at the Australian Open ever again.
Okay. You give us an update whenever.
The coaching pods. This was a new innovation at this tournament.
Yes, there are 2 pods on the corners of each court that can fit up to 4 members of staff for a player. Craig Tiley is so funny. Reading the Melbourne Age's coverage of the coaching pods, there were a lot of quotes by Tiley, of course, about what it's for and what inspired him. He said, as a former coach, ... I'd love to see coaches more integrated into the whole story of tennis, the whole production. Well, of course you would, if you're a former coach, right? The staff members in the pods are able to access, quote, real-time data and statistics from a screen inside the pods, and there is also a cooling mechanism for them. Hey, that's nice. The players don't have to, like the coaches don't have to sit in the pods. It's up to each team whether, maybe they don't want their coaches on the side, and it may not fit your entire entourage.
What I appreciate about this innovation is that we don't have to deal with the coaches being mic'd. We don't have to deal with players looking over yonder, look over there, to try and get some kind of coaching from their player. You can talk to them, but only under these circumstances and only when you're on this side of the court, but not say this, not that, only with this distance. All those things were glitchy and didn't really work.
Yeah.
Now, this can just kind of happen in plain sight seamlessly, and we can just move on.
And we don't have to hear it
Exactly.
in the sound mix, right?
The era of griping over whether this should be allowed, can we just move past
Well,
it?
clearly that ship has sailed. One of the commentators was saying, "Oh, I wish they were mic'd. I wish we could hear the coaches." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up." Have you ever seen that TikTok where the
Yes.
girl's like, "Shut the fuck up"? No, let's leave it how it is. Tylee said that he believes coaches should have a higher profile like they do in other sports. He would like them to appear in more press conferences with their players. No. He said coaches should be able to coach their players on every single point if that's what the player wants. Okay, well, that's not my decision, but whatever. I expect in the next few years the coaches will just be sitting at the player's chair.
Something I found so striking from the first week of this tournament, and it ties into this coaching pod situation, was when Naomi Osaka went right up to Patrick, and Patrick stood right on the sideline in the corner, inches away from Naomi Osaka, instructing her, coaching her as to what to do next. And having done this show for a long time, having lived through and covered the 2018 US Open, and to then realize and remember in that moment that these two were front and center in that situation on opposite sides, and now they are spearheading, in effect, this new movement. It was wild.
Yeah. And it's not even like a commentary on what happened then. It's just, wow, how much things have changed.
That's exactly it. It's the perfect example of how much tennis has evolved, can evolve in just a span of a couple of years. Whether you think it's for the better or not.
Right.
This one instance, you can point to a before where something happened and an after. And it's just ironic, Alanis Morissette, that it's these two who are now on the same team to demonstrate it.
Yes. The Australian Open is by far the most experimental of the slams, right? Craig Tiley is the one most willing to take risks, and they don't always work. But as much as we criticize Craig, there is an energy about the Australian Open that I don't really think you see anywhere else.
A very small note here on commentator pronunciations. We get them wrong all the time. We at least try to get them right. How many times do I stop you from saying Diana Schneider?
Oh, totally. And we re-record Diana. Yeah.
Yes. We still get it wrong. But we are in year 8 of Karolina Muchova.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
At least, right? Mm-hmm. We cannot still be doing Muchova. We cannot. We simply cannot. We have to be better. We have to try. That's the thing that upsets me most. John McEnroe gets all the flack, and it's well-deserved because he doesn't try.
Right.
Other commentators, they get a pass because they try at most parts of their job, but in others, in this specific instance, they don't. Like, Muchova is crazy at this point. Talking about Mira Andreeva, that's wild.
Andreeva.
That is wild.
I've had enough of him.
Like, do you say
through this first week? I'll tell you that.
Bianca Andreescu?
The logic doesn't carry forward. One of the minor controversies of the first week was the Danielle Collins fund.
I would not call it minor.
I would. It's silly.
Well, you think
frivolous.
It's silly, but it created all that conversation.
It sure
when it
did.
happened.
But in the long run, it is frivolous. Danielle was getting through a 3-setter versus the Australian Destiny Iova, who qualified for the tournament. She was, annoyed, right? They were pissed off about an MTO she took. The crowd gave her some grief because she's playing an Australian. Like, these are the things you expect. The U.S. has its own Grand Slam, remember. So U.S. players get that protection at the U.S. Open, Indian Wells, Miami.
Well, some historically haven't gotten that protection.
White ones do. So Danielle ended the match by blowing kisses and saying, "How about that?" Slapping her ass was a choice.
It wasn't just that. She kissed her hand and then slapped her ass. She was saying, kiss my ass.
Right.
That's what she's saying in that moment.
That was Danielle Collins' sign language.
Yes.
Obviously, fans were mad. People were talking about it. That Australian broadcaster Tony Jones, who will come up again later, was pissed off about her behavior. Overall, like...
You mean he's the type that would try and police women's behavior?
Right.
That seems totally out of
Then look
character.
what he went and did.
Yeah.
The thing is, I get it. Like, I think the part that I didn't love was that she kept talking about the paycheck, right? And this, your mileage will vary here about money talk based on your culture and how you were raised, right? Some people find the talk about money distasteful.
Mm-hmm. Now, was it Emma Navarro saying that? Or Jesse Pagula saying that?
Right.
That would have given it a higher level of distaste. It would have been a non-starter at that point.
Of course. And
they should be deported if they did that.
Indeed. And Danielle didn't come from a wealthy family.
Exactly.
Right. Like, she didn't grow up rich. But, yeah, a lot of people found the great thing about professional sports is my haters are paying my bills, essentially.
When you buy a ticket to my match to heckle me and do all that, it's going all to me, so suck it. That's not how tennis finances work. Right?
Well,
like,
sort of.
You're getting a share,
Sure.
a small percentage of that ticket.
But people are paying for a ticket to come see you, even by accident, right? They may be paying for the ticket for the women's second round, but a big chunk of it is spent with you. I understand the logic.
Okay.
And where she lost me was Coco and I love to go on 5-star luxury vacations. And I was like, who put Coco Gauff in it? And then I remembered there's another Coco, Colleen.
And then you learned that Colleen is part of her coaching setup.
Lord
and this is where...
God. And I was like, nope, actually you lost me now.
This is where it's always been Danielle at a distance for us. We have not always conveyed that or lived up to that ethos. Because she can be so enjoyable.
Oh, totally.
You know, but the thing about Danielle that's for us, it's the associations, the Colleen, the Harrisons-ness of it, the multiple Harrisons that have been involved in her career. And then we get Ryan on commentary at this Australian Open. Like, absolute
Truly
garbage commentary.
unbearable.
Like the voice alone. And then
The yapping.
the incessant yapping that's only to serve himself by having us think he knows what he's talking about. Do you know that type
Oh my God.
that has to talk and talk and talk to make themselves sound like they know what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Tennis commentary is good.
Is that like us?
Probably. I'm sure we get accused of that. But tennis commentary works when it's seamless, when it's concise, when you get your point across without having to do too much.
Less is more.
Boomski! Painting a picture that can be hung in the Louvre.
Some of
And
y'all's
who is
favorite.
going to paint the story of today's Australian Open? La da 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 da.
Yeah, actually, we've been watching the World Feed exclusively, and I might have to go to ESPN again. I might have to go back.
There was a moment when we switched from Harrison to listen to John McEnroe and then only went back when Patrick was there too. Like, the two of them together was the deal breaker, but...
But John was a reprieve.
Right.
Think about that. Although, there was this moment that really made me laugh that no one is going to get. When Ryan said, John Isner, I was like, old maiden type of shoes in the exact same cadence as Tiffany Pollard's rant.
Oh
like,
my God.
it was like he was channeling her. Anyway.
I guarantee you he was
No,
not.
no. But going back to Danielle, yeah, you lost me with Colleen. Like, there is another Coco now, and I don't even remember that there was a previous Coco. So I didn't even make the association. A lot was made of this. A lot is made of women's behavior, especially. The greatest player of all time, Novak Djokovic, does this shit constantly. And his fans love it. He plays the violin. He puts his hand up to his ear. He antagonizes the crowd. And that's part of the show, right? That is just part of the Djokovic package.
Medvedev was rehabilitated by doing that with the US Open crown.
Right? Like he won them over by playing the heel, like in professional wrestling. And this is what Danielle was doing. She was playing a character. And it's not my favorite type of character, but I'm also not going to say, oh, this person has no class. The class argument in tennis is moot. It has collapsed.
Mm-hmm. I find it juvenile, just like I find it juvenile when the men do it. So
Right. Novak Djokovic loved it, which, again, less said about that. Casey Delacroix surprised me. You know, she said, like every good movie or TV show, there needs to be a villain, and I think it's actually good for tennis. One other note about Danielle, she asked via her IG story for privacy about her medical issues. And she acknowledged that she's been very open about her endometriosis, but that her fertility journey has been challenging and she doesn't want to talk about it. And that's totally fair, right? She has shared more than is to be expected of anyone. Nobody has to share anything about that stuff. She's brought awareness, and now she would rather not be asked about this because it's probably very difficult what she's going through. And it changed her decision on retirement.
The World Anti-Doping Association, WADA, has decided not to appeal Iga Swiatek's case, unlike their decision with Jannik Sinner. If you recall, she tested positive for the heart medication TMZ, which she argued was due to a contaminated melatonin supplement, and she got a 1-month suspension. They found the contamination scenario to be plausible. They had until January 21st to appeal. They were still reviewing Iga's case up to the January 20th announcement.
Yeah, the other day I actually had on this agenda that WADA is still reviewing Iga's case. Today they made the announcement that they will not be appealing. One of the keys here is that the product was considered a medication in Europe, so the language there is important. I've been calling it a supplement, but in the European Union, technically it's a medication. She was found, as you recall, to have no significant fault or negligence. Difference here is that Sinner was found to have no fault or negligence, and that's what WADA is appealing. We had been talking about Elena Rybakina-Stefanov's situation, where she announced that he was going to be returning to her team. The WTA countered publicly with the fact that he is undergoing investigation and his credential has been pulled pending the result of the investigation. I don't believe we've seen him. I don't believe he's made an appearance at this tournament, but Ben Rothenberg managed to get Pam Shriver and Donna Vekic on the record about this. Pam was not surprising, but Donna was.
Pam's been going through it.
Yes.
Not in Australia because of the California wildfire situation. She told the world via Twitter that she self-evacuated to a hotel, essentially, with her family, and her car was stolen from the hotel parking lot, and in that car were the majority of her trophies that she's won in her career.
That's crazy.
Like, that is something that you do not need in that situation. You don't need it, period, but especially with everything else that's going on.
So she's been going through that, but also supporting Donna during her run here. Sasha Bayan is Donna's other coach who was there on location. But Pam, has also been working for the past few years about raising awareness about just really troubling relationships between players and coaches, has been pushing for safeguarding policies in the WTA. They've hired a director of safeguarding and recently published their safeguarding policy. If anybody wants to read it, it is public now. But of this Vukov situation, Pam said when she found out she was just deflated, and I immediately identified with how you can just lose perspective early in your life in relationships and be controlled and manipulated. And she goes on to say, she doesn't know me. Speaking of Elena. And she's right. I've never spoken with her. I've seen her. She doesn't want to look me in the eye based on what I said 2 years ago. But Pam said given her commitment to these issues personally, she just couldn't look away.
Going on to say, quote, but when I came out with my story, within like 2 or 3 months, the most common denominator of stories from the current game that came to me was concerns about Rybakina's situation. It came from many different directions, many.
And to be clear, Pam is talking about how Stefanos spoke to Rybakina and how he treated her in view of other people. She's not insinuating other things.
how he's behaved in the workplace.
Right. And so this includes things that bystanders have seen in the workplace. And part of this project is to remind people that tennis is a workplace. And this is actually a concern that is more than private, right? It extends to the community in the workplace. I was struck by how bold this statement is because, let's say she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's left herself vulnerable to, who knows, right? Legally vulnerable. You don't say stuff like this unless you've seen something. And again, she's not accusing this person of anything specific, and we're not either, and we're not trying to insinuate what's going on. But there was enough noise around it for this to raise to the level of an investigation.
You mentioned that Tony Jones would rear his head again later on in this episode. We are at that moment. Look, Novak Djokovic is a noted stunt queen.
Indeed.
Thrives on it.
It's part of the brand.
It's not even about being mad that he's not liked. That is not a thing anymore, right? That this has moved so much beyond that, in my opinion.
The perpetual victimhood is part of the package.
I was getting there.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Go on.
It also helps him. I think he needs it at this point. It's not just a something to the wayside, that he dabbles in. I think he needs it to win at this point. I think he's banking on this helping him win at this tournament. I think he needs it to win at this tournament.
A few years ago, he didn't need it. I mean,
exactly.
He would use it.
He would dabble.
Course, but he didn't need it.
He used to dabble, but now he has to dunk himself in it. He needs to just bathe in it.
Someone sent us the Tony Jones thing a few days ago, and I didn't know it was going to turn into this, but I was like, what the fuck? What overcame this man to do that?
Tony Jones was out of pocket.
Right.
Novak is not wrong. It's just that his response to me is way outsized for what actually happened.
Right. Jones is a broadcaster for Australia's Channel 9. He's stepped in it a few times during this tournament. He apparently had been sort of riling up the Novak fans behind him, and he says he thought he was engaging in banter with them, but the clip that we saw was only when he started chanting like, Novak, he's overrated, Novak's a has-been, Novak, kick him out, and then, as an aside to the camera, said, boy, I'm glad they can't hear me. Apparently, he thought this was all part of the fun. Novak was deeply offended, especially by the kick him out comment. Novak went to Jim Courier after his round of 16 match. We expected an on-court interview. He said, thanks for coming. I'm out of here.
Took the mic from Jim, did a brief thank you, and then left. Was seen talking to Craig Tiley, who apparently knew he was not happy, but Novak hadn't had a chance to speak to him directly before the match. And that's when we end up finding out the reason why this happened, and that as long as he doesn't get an apology, he won't be doing interviews.
Right. So congratulations. You've given him something to be mad about. Right? You've given him the fire he needs to win this tournament. So good job. The whole thing is just, it was intrusive thoughts came out. Like, what are you doing, dude? There's one at every network, isn't there?
Tony Jones?
Yeah.
It was just so par for the course and so typical his response. Djokovic's response. None of this was surprising to me. He got the chance to play victim, and especially in Australia, and especially being able to use it to further his deportation oppression narrative, right? Like, this was served up on a platter for him.
Right.
And he's taken it, and he's running with it, and he's going to use it as much as he can to get through this tournament.
Novak's grievances are typically motivated by self-interest.
Yep.
And they get expanded into something broader, right? They become a cause, but that's not really what's happening.
Where else do we see that kind of thing happening?
I don't know. Are you testing me?
No, the people who support him, such as Elon Musk,
Oh, totally.
Who interacted with Novak on Twitter saying this is why we can't trust legacy media. This whole legacy media shit.
The filter of legacy media, as if the new media are unfiltered, right? Like that's the big lie, is that that's direct from creator to audience, that there's no filter in between. This is what you wanted, this is what you got, right?
Erin Routliffe gave probably the quote of the tournament during her doubles match.
The net cord sensor thing wasn't working in their match, and she says, "Oh my god, we have robots everywhere and we don't have them for the net?" I said, "Exactly, girl. Say less. We have AI everywhere and none of it is useful. None of it we asked for."
She actually replied on Twitter saying, "I feel like I have a point, but also why so dramatic?" You're allowed to be dramatic.
And it was.
When you are right, when you are not being offensive to other people. This was your moment and you took it and you shined. Paula Badosa and Stefanos Tsitsipas is the other high-profile couple. One of three, I would say. The second most high-profile.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's
Jem's Life is number
and...
one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Tsitsipas and Badosa. And then we've got Bolter and Duminar.
We've also got... Don't we have Sinner and Kalinskaya? Are they still a thing?
I don't know.
Well, she's not in this tournament. But...
Still, I don't know, nor am I trying to pay attention to that.
Oh.
They would not be in the top three. Period.
Damn.
And with Tsitsipas' loss in the first round, what is a fallen soldier to do but show up in his girlfriend's player box and chastise her while she's trying to win matches?
And be useless.
Right? She's on the changeover and she's gesticulating toward the box. And then it becomes clear that she's having a conversation with Stefanos. And he's using his arms, pushing them forward to tell her, and you can see the look on his face. Calm down, calm down. If you did that to me.
Oh, I know how you react to calm down.
If.
if doesn't exist.
In this case, it does. It sure do. And then she was like, "What? Why don't you come here and play?" Huh?
No, that was funny. Like her gesticulating.
Her half was funny. His half was worth a jail sentence.
Oh, wow. I just thought it wasn't particularly helpful.
It certainly was not. Let's end the episode with our thoughts on the kits that we've seen so far.
Okay. Coco Gauff's Marvel-inspired bodysuit has gotten a lot of attention. She's been asked to talk about it in her interviews. New Balance has had hit after hit with Coco. It fits her age, it's youthful, it's fun. It's a little out of the box compared to the bigger brands.
Right, but they're not reinventing the wheel.
No.
There's a lot of similarity between most of her looks.
Right.
But they find ways to make it different and interesting.
Mm-hmm. This one is a bodysuit with cutouts in the back.
Well, it's a bodysuit and then there's a skirt over it.
Yeah, that you just...
An asymmetrical skirt that looks like it's buttoned to the side, and the diagonal cut of the skirt extends toward the knee, and it gives this kind of triangular look.
Yeah, it's an asymmetrical skirt. She did a demonstration about how she uses the bathroom in her kit. I could not believe what I was seeing on her Instagram story. She's so funny.
Do you prefer the yellow or the white and gray?
I like both. I know you felt the yellow was too monochromatic. You wanted a little contrast, but I like both of them.
It was giving Big Bird, too much too much yellow.
Okay.
I love how muted and simple the daytime kit is.
Mm-hmm.
The skirt part of it is just chef's kiss. It's so good, so simple. You love Isla's kit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't see it for very long. Isla's been doing commentary after she lost her match. Her pastels number, very, very cute. One of the highlights of week one. On to the not so great ones. Nike has essentially given up on tennis. They are clearly not interested because look what they're giving some of the best players in the world.
It's not good.
The spaghetti straps over the... I mean... This is my middle school. I don't know how old you all are, but this was the middle school style. And the sweat stains. These women deserve better.
Adidas isn't much better.
No.
At least the women look good in it. Like it fits well. It's standard issue, and then they plaster a bright color on it.
Right, but standard issue for the number one player in the world. Right, she has custom kits that look like everybody else's.
Iga's latest on kit, horrid.
I don't really want to go there.
The stripes are still vertical. Now it's just kind of tie-dyed, thick horizontal slush and mess.
It's the same thing every year. The same exact thing.
I liked Tommy Paul's kit.
I did too. Mm-hmm. He's always willing to go there with the tailoring.
I liked Donna Vekic's kit.
Yep.
I saw a few people on the internet saying that they didn't. I disagreed. I think it looks... It's a throwback. And I think she wears it really well. Nobody's really wearing what she wears.
No, last year she had something that appeared to be like velvet. It was a strange look, but she's trying something. Alcaraz looks great. I don't actually know if it's the kit. This might be like a Tiafo situation.
What else could it be?
Clearly, he's growing up, right? Like he's older. He looks like he's been working on the body. It is actually obscene, right? Like he's way too young to be looking at, but it's just all out there.
Holger's kit, atrocious. We talked about that before.
Damn.
Jack Draper did find a better top to wear.
Did, yeah.
It wasn't a muumuu this time.
Mm-hmm.
Casper's, I enjoyed his, however brief his stay was at this tournament.
I'm sorry, I didn't even see it. No, literally.
Gone too quickly, I guess. Rebekina's Yonex kit, atrocious.
She also deserves better.
There's not much else to say, really. The standout winner, Coco Gauff.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna go run. Try to catch some of...
Where are we running to? I will not be running. Oh. I do not run.
Okay, we're going to walk several feet into the living room / kitchen area to try to catch Coco's quarterfinal against Badosa.
This brings us to the end of episode 369.
That's a Little John lyric. 369.
You're trying to get me to sing?
Yeah, or rap. Or whatever. I didn't know she sang.
I see what you did there. I hope you all get the title of this episode, by the way. I mean, obviously it's based on Learner Tien's super run in the first week, but
we're getting you to sing again.
You want me to sing right now?
I learned from the best.
Sing properly.
No, I can't. I'm not going to do that. This is a song from Whitney Houston's 1999 album. Mm-hmm. Her most straightforward R&B effort. Should have been a hit. This one. There were several big hits from the album, but I learned from the best.
Even I know my limitations, and this one's a little bit out of my range. Thanks again to everybody who's helped us reach our goal for the GoFundMe. Again, it will be open till the end of the Australian Open. We'll let you know next time when the official end date will be. If you've been waiting to contribute and you're thinking, well, the goal has already been hit, I don't need to. Sure, that's one way to look at it. But also...
Go on.
But also, as we've always said, every mickle mecca muckle, even the smallest of donations go a long way. We've had people ask us, why don't you up the target? Even before we launched this one, it's like, well, are you going to ask for more this year? It's like, no, partly because the absolute abject shame of not being able to reach the goal. I don't think I could suffer that. Embarrassment,
also, I don't know. It feels kind of distasteful.
Right, and we're not now going to raise the goal. Like, that's not going to happen either.
No.
So, yeah, keep them trickling in if you are able to. We appreciate everything. My name is Jonathan. You can find me on Blue Sky at Tennis John.
I'm James at ElliotJMR on Blue Sky.
2 L's, 2 T's.
We, of course, are at The Body Serve on Blue Sky, Instagram, I don't know for how long, at Twitter still, and linktree.com/TheBodyServe.
Where you'll find all the information about the GoFundMe. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.